Hello, 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 and welcome back to this week's episode of Rhetoric with Shakia. I'm Shakia, and in this episode, we're gonna talk about Suddenly Amish. All these weeks later, I still want to say Suddenly Susan, but anyway, we're gonna talk about Season 1, Episode 8 from this TLC series, Suddenly Amish. It is Reckoning Day. And this is the episode that we've been waiting for. Will the English stay with the Amish? Now, before I get started, I'm just going to be honest with you. This particular episode of Suddenly Amish felt unnecessarily long. I was like, why is it so long? It's just unnecessary. We see clips of the English before they started this experience, and we see Judah. He's in the studio, he's working on music, he's talking about himself and his truth and all of that. We see Billy Joe and her parents, and she's bopping around town in her Amish garb. We see Aaron, he is, and I believe, teaching, and Esmeralda, right? So we get to see clips of them, their family, and then it jumps to this current episode. Now remember, episode 7, where they left off, they were all sitting around the table and they were discussing BJ's question, and she was asking about the LGBTQ community, would they be accepted? And essentially Alan said no. Judah finally revealed his secret to James, Sarah, and Alan, because the English at that point, they were already aware. And he was like, look, it's either now or never. And he said, if the Amish community, if they can't accept me for me being bi, then it's just not a community I'm going to be a part of, respectfully. Alan says that he's torn because he had a lot of love, right? He has a lot of love and respect for Judah, but he says he says the Bible doesn't condone Judah's sexuality, so he felt torn. James essentially said the same thing. It goes against their beliefs. But I was proud of Judah for finally telling his truth to Sarah, James, and Alan. Now, the question that was in the air was, when they go before the bishop, will James and Alan bring up his sexuality? Fast forward, Reckoning Day is here. They go to the church, which, by the way, watching this, now just hear me out, walk with me a little bit. When they were inside that church, I was like, ooh, this is giving a Sinners vibe. When they were in listen, if you know, you know, I won't even explain further. But I was like, wait a second, especially because Judah was there. I'm like, Judah, wait a minute. Anyway, before we talk about what took place during the church service, let's discuss what the bishop said, Vernon. He mentioned that in order to become Amish, they would have to spend 2 to 3 years during what he calls an instruction period. In that time, you would be expected to be part of the community projects going on and learn the language, then 6-month discipleship. Then, if you agree to that, you would have to have an adult baptism. So what they're doing now, the English, this is purely just exposure to the community. This isn't really part of that period of indoctrination or whatever you would want to call it. This is exposure. And I was like, dag, that's a commitment. And it makes sense because, and this is something that they repeat throughout the episodes, if you decide to join the Amish church, that is a lifelong commitment. I guess they want to make sure you are committed because you got to go through an entire process, 2 to 3 years. I'm like, dag, that's a lot. But again, it just shows your dedication and your commitment. So anyway, now let's head over into the church scene. Alan spoke in favor of all of the English, and he was able to discuss the ways that they've grown. I just got to be honest with you. When he was talking about Billy Joe, BJ, and he's like, yeah, she's gotten better at the cooking and the cleaning. And I'm like, dag. So would that be her role? Is that what she would be primarily responsible for? I just thought that was interesting. And I also thought it was interesting because Judah, when they showed the clip of him before he started this experience, he said, you know, he had a lot of potential. He wanted to use his potential. And I thought, well, I just was wondering, I'm so curious how he would like to use his potential if he were to join the Amish church and culture, I don't see the connection. And so I'm just like, isn't this interesting? He talked about Esmeralda having a hard time in the beginning, but embracing certain things and removing her makeup and her lashes, things of that nature. He directs his attention to Judah, and he says to him he's like a son, and that he hopes that they can be a blessing to each other and to the people around them, which I thought was really beautiful. You could see, even though we know a lot of these shows are not actual reality and it's scripted and all that stuff, allegedly, you can see the bond that Judah and Alan have with each other. And so I thought it was really awesome for Alan to continue to embrace Judah, especially after learning about Judah's sexuality, because it is different from what Alan knows, and it's different from what he has probably accepted before. Again, it's just awesome for that level of respect and acceptance to be there. Alan says this to Judah after the bishop asked if there was anything he wanted the English to change. Sarah, Alan's wife, in her confessional, she said that she won't look at Judah any differently. Again, this is great because this goes beyond what they are used to, and it just shows that they have the capacity to be open and accepting to people who are different from them. James takes a different approach. James is James. James says that the English are still attached to their English life, and he honestly, as he was speaking, it didn't really sound as if he was in favor. He didn't use those words, but it just felt like shots were taken. And I guess Aaron felt the same way, or picked that up too, because he said he felt slighted by that. He felt slighted by what James was saying because James had trained him and he watched how hard he was working. He watched his struggle when it came to his hearing aids. And for James to only get there in front of the church members, in front of the bishop, and essentially say, look, they're still connected to their English life. Well, of course, there's still going to be some connection. But see, again, and I said this in my last video, communities like this, they want you to fully assimilate and conform. So any type of want or wonder that differs, there could be some opposition. Moving on, the English had to get up in front of the church and talk a little bit about their experience and what they were hoping to continue to do. And for the most part, again, I just got to be honest, it felt generic, which is why I was like, I wonder whether or not they would choose to stay in this lifestyle. They would choose to stay in this community. Judah definitely had a bit more passion. A lot of them also talked about being nervous. I want to make sure that part is clear too, because it is a little nerve-wracking. And BJ said, this is something that, I think in her confessional, she said, this is something that she's wanted for so long, but in the moment she was just having a hard time finding her words. And she was also reflecting, could she go through with this for the rest of her life? Could her body handle this for the rest of her life? But anyway, what I think helped Judah win over the Amish is because of what he said. He directed his attention to the bishop and he said, I love it here. I met some amazing people and I want to continue to do that. And then he says, and this is the part that I think really won them over. He says, and I want to be able to share the word of God. And to become Amish, a lot of that has to do with your faith. And at least the parts that were shown, I think he was maybe one of the only English to actually say that. One of the things that James said specifically about Judah was that he is too much of an individual and he's creative and he just does not know how he would do in the Amish world. And I was so shocked, but in a positive way, when Vernon, the bishop encouraged the Amish to accept Judah where he is today. He encouraged them to be more loving and gracious anyway. I don't believe, though, at least it wasn't shown, that Alan or James mentioned Judah's sexuality. I really do think Alan had Judah's back. in one of his confessionals, Vernon, he said that James was quite strict with the English, and he blames him essentially for losing Matt, Kendra, and Emma. The bishop gives the final verdict when it comes to James being unshunned. Nah, James gonna have to go somewhere else. The bishop is not happy with him. I was like, good. And the bishop said to James, this is after the church service, they're outside and they're standing around and they're fellowshipping. Because at this point, oh, I actually jumped ahead. At this point, the church agreed to accept the English. And the bishop charged the English with taking some time, taking a day to see if this is what they really wanted. So now they're outside of church and they're fellowshipping. And the English, they're like, look, this feels tense. And I think it was Aaron who said, you can feel that there's something going on with the bishop. Finally, the bishop addresses this little crowd, the English and James and Alan and Sarah. And he tells James that he wasn't happy how he handled things. He also said, James, this experience was not just for the English, but it was also for you. He said, look, at one point you turned your back on the church, you turned your back on Jesus. This experience was also for you. And the bishop said he wouldn't recommend that James be unshunned, and he's gonna have to go somewhere else in hopes of being unshunned. And I was like, ooh. Oh snap. So the English were accepted in, but James still got some work to do. Now let's fast forward. It's the next day. The English had some time to think about their decision. And then we see James and Alan bring out the contraband chest. This has all of their English goodies up inside of it, okay? And they have to go up, they being the English, they have to go up to the contraband chest one at a time. Will they be tempted to take their things? And if they take their things, that means they are leaving the Amish and they're going back to their English life. Who was tempted? Up first, she was like, I'll go first. Who? Esmeralda. Esmeralda went up to that chest. She gave it all of 2 seconds and she said, I'm going to be needing my things because I'm going to be leaving. Which honestly, it wasn't that much of a surprise. I think we saw her reach a point where even though she was conflicted, this was not the lifestyle for her. So Esmeralda takes her things. And then I believe Aaron is next. Aaron is looking, he pauses and he goes, this is really important to me. He grabs his items. He needs his hearing aids, and he said this was a deal breaker for him. Now, will he regret this decision? He says, I don't know, but he's not willing to give that up. So he leaves, okay? Now we have, I believe, Judah. Judah goes up to the chest. Judah barely looks in the chest. And he's like, nah, he's gonna stay. When I heard that, I was so surprised because, well, I think I shared with you all in my last video, I'm a bit biased and I didn't want any of them to join. It just feels very strict. And, just all that conforming. And then we see Billy Joe, BJ. She goes up to the contraband chest and they open it up and we see all of her possessions. And, BJ had that, she had, how can I put this so that it's okay for YouTube? She had some adult stuff in there. I said, BJ, why would you bring this? And she looked, but then she was like, And she also decided to stay. That one surprised me only because of how much she talked about the heat and her body and being uncomfortable and all of that. That was the only reason why I was surprised. Otherwise, BJ wanted this for a long time. I mean, she was even dressing like the Amish when she was back in her real everyday life. So it wasn't too surprising, but given the fact that the episode prior, she went to the hospital, I was like, oh snap, BJ. You must genuinely want this. Guess you're dedicated to this. Okay, cool. That could have been the episode, but then there was more. And then we see the bishop in his confessional. And I loved what he had to say. He said everybody deserves a place where they can find joy. And if that's not here, we're going to bless you. If you can take something from this experience, I bless you for it. If it leads you to something different other than being Amish, I bless you for it. Has it changed the way they look at technology? Has it broken the cycle of just being glued to your phone? That would be my hope for the 6 applicants. I've really appreciated hearing his words, and it seemed that that is what happened for many of them, even the ones that decided not to continue with this experience, that they still were able to take away from their weeks of living with the Amish, which is great because even though I wouldn't become Amish, there are some things that I enjoy, right? Or that I would like that I incorporate into my life or would like to. I like the simplicity of things. I like not having to overly consume things and be so materialistic, right? I love that. The mindfulness aspect, the peace of being able to just work and be outside and not have to have your focus pulled in so many different directions. With my clients as a therapist, I often talk about mindfulness and how can we include these mindfulness strategies into our everyday lives. And so there are certain aspects that I absolutely would encourage, and it was really cool to hear some of the ways that the English incorporated some of the Amish lifestyle into their life, even if they're not Amish. So let's talk a little bit about that. Esmeralda said she's glad that she did this experience because it showed her how much she takes for granted, and she's back home and she's putting a lot of this into her life, and she's grateful and excited to finally be more immersed in her life. She is back in her old clothes, but no eyelashes. What? And Kendra, we got to see what Kendra was up to even though she left sooner. Kendra said even though it was a very challenging experience for her, it's completely shifted how she's living her life. We see clips of her going through her clothes, getting rid of some things, and she's like, I don't really need this. She also said she stopped accepting dancing jobs that required her to wear revealing clothing, and she got her tattoos removed. Unfortunately, she and Matt are not together, and so she is still looking for her cowboy. And she's attending Bible college in hopes of joining a ministry to help girls build their self-esteem. I think that's great. And I hope that Kendra also continues to do the work on herself so that she can also continue to build her self-esteem and her confidence and not allow some of her past experiences to overshadow what she has going on now and what she has to offer. So kudos to you, Kendra. Next up, we have Matt. Matt is back at his old job as a librarian at his kids' school, and he said as a result of this experience, his kids are not playing as much video games. He shared what this being Amish was like for him, this experience of being Amish, and they want to be Amish too, but they said, well, he shared things except not the getting run off the land part with an X. And anyway, his kids said that they want to be Amish too, but for Matt to not bring his phone because they don't want to get in trouble. And I just think that part is really, really cute. Next up, we have Aaron. Aaron also is back in his regular life teaching in Detroit, and he said walking away from something he put so much energy into wasn't easy, but he's really glad that he considered trying the Amish life because of the lessons learned, the revelations and realizations. It was everything that he needed. Kudos to you, Aaron. Okay, I feel like I'm like doing a graduation speech. Moving on, we see Alan. Alan said, look, their mission was to help them find a better life, and it feels like they succeeded. It sounds like it, honestly, because like I said, a lot of them are incorporating some of these things, and it's helping to slow them down, be more grateful, show up in their lives, be more present. So it's really cool. Next, James. Oh, James. James said the bishop didn't feel like he was ready to be unshunned. No surprise there, but he's glad for everything that he's learned. And he said that the English taught him about acceptance. And he says hopefully more English will come in the future, and he's willing to be there and help them. Listen, go on, James. I bet you do want some more English to come. Then you get to have your pick. No, okay, James. So James is looking for a new community to join in hopes of becoming unshunned. Judah. Judah is currently in Atlanta. Well, at the time of the airing of that episode, Judah was in Atlanta. He's seeing family and friends, and he wants to continue his journey with the Amish community. However, Judah is deciding whether to stay in Lancaster or if he could find a more liberal Mennonite community that allows for more self-expression. I really want to see how this plays out for Judah, because Judah is, creative, and he has a lot of personality, and you can see the potential there. And I just wonder if he will be able to channel any of that outside of maybe just religion. So I don't know. I am curious to see how all of this works out for him. Lastly, we have BJ. BJ said that actually she and Judah have talked about getting a house together, but meanwhile, she is learning Pennsylvania Dutch. Go ahead, BJ. Last up, so actually I said BJ was last, but that's not true, because we also had an update about Emma. Oh, listen, Emma moved back home with her family, and she has no plans, unlike James, she has no plans to take part in any further missions to bring English into the Amish communities. I bet she don't want no competition. With her man cousin James, allegedly, just kidding. Or am I? I don't know, but allegedly. She said a lot of people would want the Amish lifestyle because it seems so peaceful and everybody wants peace. She said everybody's looking for something, and most of those people that are looking for something, they're looking for a place where they can feel safe and where they can just have that peacefulness. And I agree, Emma. Listen, whether we are Amish or not, may we all have peace. Sometimes taking away things from your life, removing things from your life and old habits, and having a simple routine and things of that nature can help us to have peace. So yes, may we all find peace that we deserve. That concludes a very brief recap. Let me know if any of the decisions were surprising. Surprise, surprise. Okay, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad that you're here, and I really hope that you come back for the next one. But until then, bye for now.